As you saw right here on Fox 61, Connecticut's news station, Michelle Troconis found guilty on all charges connected to the death of Jennifer-Dulos, including conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence. Legal analyst Ray Hassett has joined me on the morning show since the very start of the trial to provide his legal analysis and insight here, and we spoke shortly after the verdict came down. Ray, as always, appreciate your time. You've been with us since the beginning of this trial. Michelle Troconis guilty on all counts. What was your gut reaction?
My gut reaction was that the jury really did a pretty thorough job in reviewing all of the circumstantial evidence. We saw by some of the questions that they asked and the answers from the court that they were focused in on precisely what they needed to be, which was what role did she play in the conspiracy? And I think that the jury really did focus in on that. I think they were assisted and helped by the state's closing argument, which drew out these 30 different points. All of those predominantly were circumstantial evidence. And as a result, the jury did a very fine job in looking at and analyzing that to come to the conclusion, which was guilty on all charges.
We've heard from members of the legal community surprised by the verdict here. We've heard from regular, everyday citizens equally as surprised. How difficult of a case was this for the prosecution?
You know, it was a very difficult case. It was difficult for the defense because of the publicity and because of the notoriety of the case throughout the nation. And it was difficult for the state, too, as well, because they didn't have a body. They don't have the main piece of evidence that they need yet. They were able to establish through all of the investigative work of the Connecticut State Police and the local law enforcement agencies how the timeline came together and how that circumstantial evidence really was important for them to collect and provide to the jury so that they could make a decision.
Talk about what surprised you in all of this, either during the trial or with the verdict itself.
Obviously, the length of the trial was a little surprising. It was something that we anticipated, but predominantly the thing that surprised me the most was the fact that some of the evidence that was ushered through was evidence that seemed to be unrelated whatsoever to either the murder or alternatively Ms. Troconis. But what the prosecution was doing at that time was putting together this timeline.
Michelle Troconis, we're learning, could spend up to 90 years behind bars. Is that likely, and what do you think happens next?
I think it's very likely that she is going to get a very severe sentence. The full 90, I don't know. That's up to Judge Harmon to decide, but it's very, very possible. There's also the possibility that maybe something changes between now and her sentencing, where evidence comes about or some information comes about, maybe even the body is found in between then and now, and maybe that plays a difference. Of course, that's circumspect that she even knows where it is. I think right now the defense is really just going to focus on the appellate issues.